I'm saying is I did it. I got away with it. My life has never been the same, and I'm glad I did it.
In case you don't know who I am, my name is Dawn and I work here at FX Caprara Harley-Davidson.
Am I ready? I think I'm ready. What? Am I not ready? Sorry, I should have taken care of this first. This is another chapter of the Harley-Davidson Reader, and again, I have permission from the Quarto Group to read this, so I'm excited to bring that to you. I was thinking I would be able to do it out in the garage, and I have my bike with me, but it's still a little too cold for that, so I've got the big comfy chair now, and let's get reading. This chapter is The Old Bike in the Barn, or What My Folks Didn't Know Didn't Hurt Me, by Allan Girdler. Allan Girdler has probably logged more miles on a Harley XR 750 than just about anyone. Although Jay Springsteen might beat him around a half-mile dirt track, and Ricky Graham probably has more race jewelry on display in his den, Allan has vintage raced his own Iron XR 750 for years, and even toured on it, for goodness sakes. Allan is a former editor of Car Life and Cycle World, as well as an executive editor of Road and Track magazines. He is also the author of an eclectic blend of books on motoring history, from his well-known Harley-Davidson, The American Motorcycle, Harley Racers, the Harley-Davidson and Indian Wars, Illustrated Harley-Davidson Buyer's Guide, and Harley-Davidson XR 750, to tomes on NASCAR and sports racing specials. His fascination with motorcycles had humble beginnings, however, and he relates that in this classic tale of a bike found in a barn. I guess I should go let the dogs go back in, huh? Hold on, I'll be right back. Alrighty. When I first sat down to recount, better make that confess, how I got my first motorcycle, taught myself to ride, and didn't tell my folks what I was up to, I thought, gee, maybe I'd better put something along the lines of, kids, don't try this at home. And then I thought, nah, history tells us that Gottlieb Daimler, builder of the first gas-powered motorcycle, waited until his wife was away before that machine's first test, proving to me, at least, that if we waited for parental permission or approval, there wouldn't be any motorcycles. So, kids of all ages, I'm not telling you to try this at home. All I'm saying is, I did it. I got away with it. My life has never been the same, and I'm glad I did it. When I began the summer, I was 17 with a call from my best friend, also 17, and also lacking in common sense. Our mutual interest was in finding derelict Fords, hauling them home, and souping them up. He'd been reading the classifieds and found an ad for a 1934 Harley-Davidson, and he wanted me to come help him look at it. I had admired motorcycles from a distance, and once crashed my cousin's motor scooter into a hedge when I swerved to avoid a passing police car, but my motorcycling knowledge totaled 0. Same as his. So, seemed to me that 2 times nothing is nothing, as the song says, but I was game to look and learn. The seller was a couple of years older than us and vastly experienced. He gave us a short tour, as in, that's the clutch, that's the gear shift, that's the front brake, and that's the throttle. And he clearly figured that was all we needed to know. We figured the same. When I say now that the 1934 Harley-Davidson had a foot clutch and hand shift, it sounds odd, if not impossible. But Harleys and Indians used this system until after World War II. And although new bikes had hand clutches and foot shifts, when we paid this visit, we didn't know that because we didn't know anything about motorcycles. How little? My pal swung a leg over the bike, unfolded the kick lever, reared up in the air, and gave it a mighty heave down. It hadn't occurred to him that the bike might be in gear, which of course it was, and for only a time in our acquaintance, The old Harley fired on the first kick. It had been parked in the garage, facing in, and when the engine caught, the bike leaped forward, climbed the garage's back wall, and described a perfect half-gainer, straight up, then arcing gracefully over and down. My pal had thoughtfully placed himself between the falling motorcycle and the garage floor, so the bike wasn't damaged. He was bruised, scraped, and completely uninterested in learning any more about motorcycles. I was enthralled. I thought this motorcycle was the most wonderful device I'd ever seen, so I anteed up the asking price of $50. Oh, wait a bit. Might be useful here to pause for another explanation. When people hear I bought a classic old antique Harley-Davidson for pocket change, they assume that I was smarter than other people, getting this wonderful classic for next to nothing, and they usually wonder, do I regret not having kept it? No, I didn't buy a collectible antique. What I bought was a clapped out piece of old iron that nobody else wanted, which is why it was so cheap. This occurred so long ago, 1954 if you need to know. The folks with too much money are buying old Harleys, and the kids with no money are buying obsolete motocross bikes for $50 and learning the hard way how they work. Which is exactly what I did back then, wobbling home on a motorcycle older than me, stalling the engine and grinding the gears until I learned how to coordinate the controls. That was the easy part. The part I really had trouble with was I didn't have to ask to know what Mom and Dad would say to a motorcycle. And in parentheses, he says, years and years later, my dad admitted that his Uncle Pat, the family daredevil and, I surmised, ne'er-do-well, rode an Indian, but this wasn't something said in public or when children were present. But, by happy chance, one of my brothers hoped to ride rodeo, and he kept his cutting horse in a remote barn up the road. So that's where I put my Harley. There was enough space for me and my brothers to practice starts and stops and riding in circles. One of my treasured childhood images is my younger brother rising into the air above the machine, describing a graceful arc and landing, head first in front of the front wheel. The old 74 had quite a kick when he neglected, as my brother had, to retard the spark before leaping onto the start lever. And I ventured out onto the open road. I did have a driver's license, and I sort of think now there was no motorcycle requirement in my home state then. And the Harley was registered, albeit not to me. I was a minor, after all. Nor did the thought of insurance trouble me. I simply didn't have any. Oh, one reason I never found out about the legal concerns was that I never got stopped. And I never got stopped, I think now, because I wasn't wearing a helmet. Kids, don't pay attention to this part. I didn't get stopped because all the cops in that part of the state knew me, because when I was 16, I looked 12. And when I first got my license, I was stopped 30 times in the first 31 days I went public with my old Ford, which had lots of carburetors, exhaust pipes sticking out from the side, no hood, no top, and no fenders. The police must have figured it was just that loopy kid doing another dumb thing, which of course I was doing. They simply didn't know the degree of dumb is all. I had two partners in this foolishness. One was the errant son of an old money family, whose name you'd recognize if I gave it, which I won't because ratting on pals isn't done in my circle. The second bike nut was a kid from the docks who'd quit school and made enough to buy a new Harley-Davidson, the sports model, painted red. Thank goodness. The thanks are because there I was, rumbling down the road through our little town when I passed Grandma. Uh-oh. Gulp. As it happened, Grandma was cool. I mean, she drove a Barracuda, no kidding. But she was still Grandma, and she looked at me, and I waved, put on a bold face, I told myself, and she waved back. She got home before I did, which I know because Mom was at the door. Grandma says you passed her on a big red motorcycle. Oh yeah, I said as the perfect fib occurred to me. I was on Rocky's bike. I wanted to learn how. Rocky was a member of the Fix or Repair Daily Club, so Mom had seen his motorcycle, which was undeniably red, So she delivered safety lecture number 4, and that was that. And anyway, I did want to learn how, which I did. Tipped over some but didn't crash. I think now because I was so intimidated, I didn't take the chances that led to disaster. When the registration expired, though, the fun stopped. I knew that would be noticed, and I'd be stopped, and my goose would be Christmas dinner. I gave the old Harley, still working well, to another pal. And what happened to the machine after that, I don't know. Years and years later, I had occasion to ride an Indian from the era of my first Harley. As in foot clutch, hand shift, brakes engineered to not stop you without a lot of warning first, and I thought, this is impossible. How lucky I was to not have known how tough it was back then, because if I'd known it was this difficult, I wouldn't have tried it. And I would have missed the best part. And I'll show you this picture that they've got in the book. I think I have this as well. I think this is in the Harley-Davidson archives, but I'll see if I can't find it. It's the Harley-Davidson faithful line up in front of their local dealership. Pretty cool, huh? So, thanks for coming along with me. If you liked what you saw, please be sure to give me a thumbs up. If you want to see more, hit that subscribe button. And until the next time, have fun and stay safe, everybody. You photobombing? You photobombing?